Good evening, teammates, and everyone joining us online. So, welcome to today's edition of News You Can Use. Today is Tuesday, June 11th. So, I'm Mya Henry, and I'm thrilled to be here with all of you, delivering the latest insights and updates that can truly make a difference in your life and in your business. In this segment, we're going to be exploring the most relevant ways and trends and news that and practical tips as well that you can use to apply right away. That way you can stay ahead of the game. So gather around and let's get ready for an enriching and informative session. So let's dive straight into today's news that you can use that will empower you to have an edge as you build for your business. So stay tuned for an exciting and valuable session. So jumping straight into this. So another popular discount retailer is days away from liquidation. So Bed Bath & Beyond, a long struggling major home goods retailer, ceased operations and was quickly liquidated. So now this move wasn't unexpected, but the speed at which it happened was a little bit shocking. So the company went from an operating business to going out of business sales in a matter of weeks. And that was quickly followed by the company's intellectual property that includes the business's name, its website, and other digital assets, which are now selling for 21.5 million, right? So while Bed Bath & Beyond stores went away, its name will still remain as the new owner is adopting its identity. So just like the company went out of business, guess what? People also lost their jobs as well. So employees, one thing that they can definitely expect was them losing their job. So now with credit card interest rates at a record high, I'm going to share with you guys 4 tips that you can use to help beat the brutal minimum payment cycle. So credit card rates, they're at their all-time high, and that's bad news for households that carry balances from month to month, right? So the COVID-19 pandemic has separated the haves and the have-nots when it comes to finances. Now, more than 1/3 of Americans, which is 35%, say that they're carrying their highest level of debt ever or close to it, right? So that in itself, according to a Northwestern Mutual survey, that's 2,740 adults. So on the other hand, 43% of adults with personal debt say that those balances are at their lowest levels ever or closest to it. So everyone is in the same storm, but not everyone has the same shit, right? So the average credit card union debt is 5,733 per person. Now, Americans have a set record for total credit card debt with 986 billion in the fourth quarter of last year. Every other time in the past 20 years, credit card debt fell in the first quarter. So that right there speaks to the challenges of high inflation and higher interest rates. So credit card rates have now an average of 20.55%, the highest since it's been since 1985. And credit card rates rose more last year than any other year on record. So the minimum payment math is brutal. So a credit card borrower with the average of 5,733 credit card balance at 20.55%, they'll be in debt for over 17 years if they make just the minimum payments every month. But along with that, they're also going to pay about 8,400 in interest on top of the 5,733 in balance. So that's pretty brutal. Some tips that can help is you should opt for a 0% balance transfer offers, come up with a debt payoff plan, seek professional help, and most importantly, keep saving, right? So an emergency fund with 3 to 6 months of expenses is ideal. Credit card debt holders should strive for at least 2 months expenses to fall back on in the pinch. So Another thing I want to talk to you guys about is Bank of America. So Bank of America is to pay 250 million for illegal fees and fake accounts. So Bank of America, if you guys know, it's the nation's second largest bank. And they've been ordered to pay more than 100 million to customers for double charging insufficient funds and fees without rewarding bonuses and opening accounts without customers' knowledge or permission. This bank is also on the hook for an additional 150 million in penalties for the same violations, right? It was announced that Bank of America harmed hundreds of thousands of customers across multiple product lines over a period of several years through a series of illegal practices. Isn't that crazy? So as a result, Bank of America was ordered to pay over 100 million to customers and another 90 million in penalties. A separate $60 million fine has been ordered by the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency for violating laws around overdraft fees. Now, keep in mind that Bank of America, right, the nation's second largest bank, this is what they're doing to people, not just people, but to their customers. That's crazy if you ask me. So, with a world-class workforce and a booming economy, North Carolina repeats as America's top state for business in 2023. So North Carolina tops CNBC's state business competitive rankings for the second year in a row as workers flock to take advantage of a booming economy and the growing operations of companies, including Apple, within the state. And North Carolina improves on its 2022 performance despite growing political divisions that threaten its ranking in education and quality of life, while Texas fell out of the top 5 for the first time. So, at a time when companies are clamoring for workers while trying to navigate a treacherous economy, no state is meeting their needs more effectively than North Carolina. So, it's the second consecutive year at the top for North Carolina, and business and the economy in the state have been on a tear since the pandemic, and the state has scarcely looked back. Now, another thing I want to talk to you guys about is China. And China, they're teetering on the brink of deflation. So that's a huge red flag for the global economy. So China is on the brink of deflation where prices are falling rather than rising. And its central bank has cut interest rates in a scramble to prop up the sputtering growth. Now, essentially, it's the opposite of what's happening in the United States, and that could be a huge red flag for the global economy. So, as of right now, nothing's going right for China's economy at the moment, right? Especially since COVID-19 lockdown. And now the country can add deflation to its growing list of economic worries. So, the cost of the average Chinese shopping basket, it stayed the same in June, while the producer price index sharply fell. So prices staying the same, it might sound like a good thing, but most economists see deflation as a nightmare scenario. Why? That's because people are likely to hold off on buying things with the expectation that they'll become cheaper in the near future. And that drop in spending can then drag down growth. So deflation is a very bad sign of macroeconomically. So individually, people who are trying to save money, it might be done, they might be doing the right things, but collectively, they may be killing the economy. So China's central bank has shown how serious it's taking the threat of both deflation and a slowdown in growth by cutting several key interest rates, essentially taking the opposite course of action to the US Federal Reserve. But if those policies don't work, there could be pain ahead for the global economy. So China is the second largest country by gross domestic product, a massive exporter of goods, right? And a huge source of income for major United States company ranging from Apple to Nike. So that could slow down, and that is likely to be felt across the entire world. So women's, right? Women, their working record is making a comeback. So 2020, it was a bad year for everyone, but it was especially tough for working women. So the COVID-19 shutdown led to mass layoffs in female-dominated sectors of the economy, from healthcare to hospitality, while schools and daycares, they're closing, and it made it virtually impossible for mothers with young kids to hold on to their jobs. So millions of women, they're forced to drop out of the workforce by 2021 as the economic recovery took hold. More than a million remained missing. So these numbers were so alarming that commentators dubbed it at a she session. The pandemic, economists warned that it might wipe out an entire generation of progress for working women. But instead, the opposite actually happened. So women came wearing back with a workforce in a record of numbers. So by early this year, their ranks had returned to pre-pandemic levels. So today, 77.8% of women between the ages 25 and 54 are in the labor force, surpassing the previous peak in the 2000s. So the pandemic, it didn't impair women's careers. It actually supercharged them. So the surge has been aided by a strong economic recovery, but it isn't just that. So even during a boom time for job seekers, men have not returned to work in the same numbers as women. And the biggest gains, surprisingly, have been among women who are in their 30s, the age when college educated women often start having kids and prompting them to scale back or quit their jobs. Right. So the average salary by age in 2023. So the median average salary for Americans who are earning peak are at the 45 to 55 age range. So the biggest jump in salary from one age group to the next is between ages 20 to 24 and ages 25 to 34, meaning that that's when the most people make a substantial jump in their careers. So younger earners in the ages between 16 to 19 age group, they tend to make an average of 49.92% less than older workers. So that information that I just shared with you guys, the dramatic salary increase experienced by workers as they transition from 22 to 24 and to the 25 to 34 age group. Now, this substantial lead in earning signifies that most impactful career advancements typically occur during this period. So this is all because of factors such as skill development and educational attainment and work experience. But there's also a stark wage disparity between younger earners between ages 16 to 19 and their older counterparts. So on average, these young workers earn 49.92% less, which can be attributed to factors such as limited work experience or a narrower skill set and occupying entry-level positions. So this information is invaluable for policymakers, educators, and employers alike, because it just highlights the importance of skill development and work experience in bridging the income gap. So as these younger individuals mature, expand their skills, and accumulate work experience, their earning potentials will significantly improve, ultimately driving the overall growth of their salaries throughout their careers. So New Jersey, Massachusetts, and Maryland, there are the states with the largest, biggest income jumps from one range to the next. New Hampshire is the state where young people have the average highest income with a salary of 52,000. And New Jersey is the state with the biggest pay gap between younger and older workers. So now, quiet quitting is getting a run for its money with inflation. So Gen Z and millennials are really struggling to get in the work-life balance that they want. So young adults' relationship with work is, in a word, we can say complicated. while millennials and Gen Zers highly value their work-life balance. They're operating in a high inflation world where money is tight and stable finances are tough to find. So they might not dream of labor, but many must labor harder than their parents did to afford the same lifestyle, which makes it difficult for them to actually put their money where their mouth is when it comes to achieving that coveted balance. So, one more thing that I want to share is how much do you have to make in New York to be considered middle class? So, as of 2021, about half of the population was considered to be middle class. But what does that even mean? What does it mean to be considered middle class? So, with the way that the economy has been lately, it kind of makes you feel like you're behind this year as compared to last year. And that may be true with inflation and everything else becoming a factor. So, the middle class is defined by any household that earns between 2/3 and double the median US household income. But the thing is, those numbers look different in every state due to the cost of living and a handful of other factors. So, New York State middle class, right? So, original numbers show data from 2016, right? In 2016, the inflation rate was 24.2%, but we can still figure out what those numbers look like in today's world. So, for a single person living in New York State, a single person's household was considered to be middle class if they made anywhere between 30,000 to 90,000 in 2016. Today, that age range is more reflectively given in a range between 37 to 112,000. So you guys see how drastic that difference is. So for a couple living in New York State, they're considered to be middle class in 2016 if they made anywhere between 42,000 and 127,000. But now, a couple may be considered middle class if they make anywhere from 52,000 to 158,000. And for a family of four, it could bring in anywhere between 60,000 and 180,000 back in 2016, and you would be considered middle class. But in today's day and age, a family of four would have to bring in 74,000, anywhere between 74,000 to 224,000. And it's just crazy to see how those numbers may have been affected, especially when you take into consideration inflation. So when you compare the numbers for middle class households in New York State to the national average, you could be surprised how different those ranges are. So on a national level, here are what the ranges are for the following middle class households. So factoring in the cumulative range of inflation, a single person household in the United States is considered to be middle class if they make anywhere from 32,000 to 97,000. Now, keep in mind that this is just a single person household. Isn't that insane? Now, in 2022, a couple in the United States is considered to be middle class if they make anywhere between 45,000 through 137,000. And for a family of four, it could range anywhere between 64,000 and 156,000. And that considers you to be middle class. So I just want to thank you guys for tuning in with us today. Now, those are all the news that I have for today. And this is another reason why people have to start working with us. Another reason why people have to start getting on board with us, because just imagine, guys, like, imagine you being laid off from your job, the job that you were depending on to supply for yourself or to supply for your family of four. You wake up one day and all of a sudden you're just laid off. That's insane, right? So yes, I hope you guys take this information and share it with as many people as you can. And of course, like I mentioned, people need to start working with us.